I'm standing in the lobby of the Marco Polo Plaza Hotel in Cebu City, Philippines. I've just flown 7,000 kilometers. I'm holding 24 red roses. I'm wearing the cologne she said she loved. My heart is racing. In exactly 30 minutes, I'm supposed to meet the woman I've been planning to marry. The woman I've sent $375,000 to over the past 18 months. The woman I've video called hundreds of times. Heard her laugh, watched her cry, seen her fall asleep on camera. The woman who knows everything about me, my divorce, my kids' names, my business deals, my dreams, my fears, what I eat for breakfast. I'm 54 years old. I'm a successful commercial real estate developer from Brisbane. I own 3 properties worth over $4 million. I have a university degree. I've literally negotiated million-dollar contracts. I'm not stupid. I'm not desperate. I'm not some lonely old man who can't tell reality from fantasy. At least, that's what I thought. The woman I came here to meet, she never showed up to that hotel. And when I finally discovered the truth about who she really was, it destroyed everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and my own judgment. My name is Andrew, and this is how I lost $375,000 to someone I never met. If you're in an international relationship right now, or you're thinking about dating someone overseas, do not skip this video, because what happened to me is happening to thousands of men just like me, right now, today. I'm going to walk you through exactly how this happened, month by month, dollar by dollar, every manipulation tactic, every red flag I ignored, every lie I believed. Let's start at the beginning. It was March 2022. I was 53 years old, 4 years divorced, running a successful commercial property development company in Brisbane. My kids were adults, Emma, 28, working in Sydney, and Jack, 25, finishing his master's in Melbourne. I was lonely. I'm not ashamed to admit that. My marriage had ended badly. I'd tried Australian dating apps, Bumble, Hinge, Tinder. Nothing felt right. A mate of mine, Trevor, had married a Filipino woman he'd met on International Cupid. They seemed happy. He suggested I give it a try. Filipinas are family-oriented, mate. Traditional values. I created a profile. Within a week, I had 50+ messages. Most were clearly fake. Obvious scammers. Hello, handsome sir. I am looking for serious relationship leading to marriage. Copy-paste messages, profile photos that look like Instagram models. But then there was Grace. Her profile was different. Her photos showed a normal woman, attractive but not model perfect. She was 32, living in Cebu City. She worked as a marketing manager for a business process outsourcing company. Her profile mentioned she loved hiking, cooking, and spending time with her family. Her first message to me wasn't flirty or forward. She said, "Hi Andrew, I noticed you're in commercial real estate. I actually work in marketing for a BPO that services Australian property management companies. Small world. How's Brisbane this time of year?" It felt normal, professional even. We started messaging. She asked about my work. I asked about hers. She told me about Cebu, the IT park where she worked, the traffic, the beaches on nearby islands. She sent me photos of her office building, her lunch at a nearby restaurant, a sunset from her apartment balcony. After 2 weeks of messaging, she suggested we video call. "I prefer to actually see who I'm talking to," she wrote. "Too many fake profiles on these sites." I respected that. It showed she was cautious, thoughtful. Our first video call lasted 37 minutes. She was in her apartment, a modest 1-bedroom place. I could see her living room in the background, a small kitchen, laundry hanging on a rack. It looked real. Lived in. Grace was articulate, intelligent, funny. She asked me about my divorce. Genuinely curious, not judgmental. She told me about her own failed relationship with a Filipino man who cheated on her. She asked about my kids. She laughed at my jokes. At the end of the call, she said something that stuck with me. "Andrew, I need to be honest. I'm not looking for a sugar daddy or a visa ticket to Australia. I have a good job here. I earn decent money. If we're going to talk, I want it to be because we genuinely connect, not because you think I need rescuing or I think you're a walking ATM." I believed her. Hell, I respected her for saying it. But here's what I didn't know. That entire first impression was carefully engineered. The apartment I saw on video, rented specifically for video calls with targets like me. The job at the BPO company, a complete fabrication. Even her name wasn't Grace. Everything I thought was genuine. It was the opening move in an 18-month game that would cost me $375,000. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because in month 2, she did something that made me fall completely. We started talking every day, video calls, voice messages, texts. Grace would message me, "Good morning," every single day, which was actually evening in the Philippines because of the time difference. She'd send me photos of her lunch, her office, her weekend hikes with friends. Here's what made it feel so real. She never asked for anything. Not money, not gifts, not even compliments, really. She was just present, interested in my life. She'd ask about my projects. I was developing a commercial plaza in Fortitude Valley at the time. She'd actually remember details I'd mentioned weeks earlier. "How did that council approval meeting go?" Or, "Did Emma enjoy her birthday dinner?" A few weeks in, I sent her flowers. A bouquet delivered to her office in Cebu. It cost me 87 Australian dollars, including delivery. Grace video called me in tears, happy tears. She showed me the flowers on her desk. Her co-workers in the background were teasing her, congratulating her. It looked spontaneous, real. "Andrew, no one's ever done something like this for me," she said. "You didn't have to." That's when I started falling for her. When someone tells you that you didn't have to do something nice, but they're genuinely touched by it, that's powerful. We started talking about meeting in person. I suggested I fly to Cebu. Grace said she'd prefer to save up and come to Australia first. "I want to see your world, where you live, meet your kids if they're comfortable with it." She was saying all the right things. 3 months into our relationship, things shifted, just slightly. Grace mentioned her younger brother, Miguel, was taking entrance exams for university. He wanted to study civil engineering at the University of the Philippines, Cebu. She was proud of him, worried about the costs, but confident her family would figure it out. I asked how much university cost in the Philippines. She said around 60,000 pesos per semester, about 1,600 Australian dollars. "It's manageable," she said. "My parents have some savings and I can help." I didn't offer money, not yet. 2 weeks later, Grace called me late at night. Her time. She was crying. Miguel had gotten accepted to UP Cebu. Amazing news, but her father had just told her the family savings weren't enough. They were 35,000 pesos short for the first semester enrollment fee, about 950 Australian dollars. The deadline was in 6 days. "I don't know what we're going to do," she said. "Miguel's worked so hard. This is his dream. My parents are trying to borrow from relatives, but..." She wasn't asking me for money. That's the crucial part. She was just sharing her family's problem with someone she trusted. I made the decision myself. "Grace, let me help. It's less than $1,000 Australian. I can transfer it tonight." She refused 3 times. "Andrew, no. We've only been talking for 3 months. I can't take your money. What would you think of me?" That refusal made me trust her more. She wasn't a gold digger. She was proud. Independent, I insisted. "Grace, listen to me. I'm 53 years old. I have 2 grown kids whose university I've already paid for. I have a successful business. $1,000 means nothing to me, but it means everything to your brother's future. Let me do this." She cried. She thanked me. She said she'd pay me back as soon as she could. I transferred 35,000 Philippine pesos, 947 Australian dollars, to her GCash account that night. The next day, she sent me photos of Miguel at the university, enrolling, smiling, holding his acceptance letter. She sent me a voice message from her father, thanking me in broken English. "Sir Andrew, thank you, sir. You helped my son. God bless you, sir." It felt incredible. I'd helped someone's family. I'd made a real difference. What I didn't know, that $947 was a test, to see if I'd send money, to see how much resistance I'd put up, to see if I'd feel good about it afterward. I passed their test, or failed it, depending on how you look at it, because now they knew I was a viable target. I had money, I was generous, I wanted to be the hero, and most importantly, I felt good about sending money. A month later, Grace told me about something, but she was careful about how she framed it. "Andrew, I need to tell you about an opportunity, but I don't want you to think I'm trying to involve you in anything," she said during a video call. Her cousin, Patricia, ran a small online export business in Cebu, selling Filipino products to customers in Australia, New Zealand, and the US. Dried mangoes, handicrafts, textiles, coffee. The business was doing well, but Patricia needed capital to expand. She's asked if I want to be a partner, Grace said. 20% ownership for 250,000 pesos, about 6,700 Australian dollars. It's everything I've saved in the past 3 years, but it could be a really good opportunity. I asked questions. Grace had answers. Patricia had been running the business for 2 years. She had existing customers. She had business permits, supplier contracts. Grace sent me photos of the products, the business registration documents, even a profit and loss statement showing monthly revenue of around 180,000 pesos. I told Grace it sounded promising. I encouraged her to do it if she believed in it. She invested her 250,000 pesos in late June. For the next few weeks, Grace was excited. She'd send me updates. We just got a big order from Sydney, $2,400 worth of dried mangoes and coffee, or Patricia is negotiating with a new textile supplier. Then everything changed. Grace called me crying. The business had received a massive order, 18,000 Australian dollars worth of products from a distributor in Melbourne. But they needed to purchase inventory up front to fulfill it. They needed 520,000 pesos, about 14,000 Australian dollars. Patricia's trying to get a bank loan, but it's taking too long. The customer needs the order in 3 weeks or they'll go to another supplier. Then she said something that hooked me. Andrew, I know this is huge, but what if you became a partner? Not just lending money, actually investing. Patricia said she'd give you 30% ownership for 14,000 Australian dollars. She sent me projections, the partnership agreement. Everything looked official. But here's what really convinced me. Grace framed it as our future. When I move to Australia, and I will, I'll manage the business remotely. You and I would be business partners. It's something we'd build together. I thought about it for 3 days. I transferred 14,000 Australian dollars. Grace sent me photos of inventory being purchased. She sent me the signed partnership agreement. My name listed as a 30% owner of Pacific Trade Connections. What I didn't know, the business barely existed. The massive order never happened. The photos were stock images mixed with old photos from Patricia's actual small operation. My $14,000 went straight into Grace's pocket. But from my perspective, I'd just become a business partner with my girlfriend. I'd invested in our shared future, and that business investment was just the setup for what came next. Because 2 months later, Grace found the perfect property for us in Cebu, a place where we could build our future together. And that's when my total investment jumped from $15,000 to over $150,000. 2 months after the business investment, Grace video called me with genuine excitement in her voice. Andrew, I found something incredible. A pre-selling condominium project in Cebu Business Park, 2-bedroom unit, 28th floor, overlooking the city and the ocean. It's perfect for us. She explained the developer was offering early bird pricing, 3.8 million pesos for a 68 square meter unit, about 102,000 Australian dollars. Once completed in 18 months, units would be worth 5.5 to 6 million pesos. I've been thinking, she said, when I move to Australia with you, we'll still want a place in Cebu, for visits, for our future, maybe even for retirement someday. This could be our Philippine home. She sent me the developer's brochure, photos of the model unit. The project was called Azure Residences, a legitimate development by a real Cebu developer. I looked it up. It was real. But here's where Philippine law created the trap. Foreigners can't own condos in the Philippines unless the building maintains 60% Filipino ownership, Grace explained. But we can do what other couples do. I'll be the legal owner, and we'll have a deed of agreement that it's jointly owned. When we marry, it becomes marital property anyway. She sent me a sample deed of agreement drafted by a lawyer. It looked official, notarized. I consulted with my own lawyer in Brisbane. He warned me, Andrew, if the relationship ends, that deed might not be enforceable in Philippine courts. Legally, she'd own it outright. I remember my exact response. She's not like that. We're building a life together. I transferred 102,000 Australian dollars in 3 installments over 6 weeks. Grace sent me the official contract of sale, payment receipts, photos of us visiting the construction site together on video call. Everything looked legitimate. It was legitimate. The condo was real. The purchase was real. But the ownership? That was the trap. Because under Philippine law, that property was 100% Grace's. My deed of agreement was worthless. I just handed her a $102,000 asset. My total at this point, 116,947 Australian dollars. About 3 months after the condo purchase, Grace called me at 2 a.m. Brisbane time. She was sobbing so hard she could barely speak. It's my mother. She collapsed. They think it's her heart. She's at Cebu Doctors University Hospital. Andrew, I don't know what to do. Grace's mother, Elena, was 58 years old, diagnosed with hypertension years ago, but never managed it properly. Now she was in the cardiac care unit. The doctors wanted to do an angiogram and potentially place a stent. Cost, 285,000 pesos, about 7,600 Australian dollars. PhilHealth, the Philippine National Health Insurance, would only cover 45,000 pesos. The family had to pay 240,000 pesos out of pocket before the procedure could be scheduled. My father's trying to borrow from relatives, Grace said. But Andrew, it's my mother. I can't lose her. What was I supposed to do? Let her mother die when I had the money? I transferred 7,600 Australian dollars that morning. Grace sent me photos from the hospital, her mother in the ICU, medical documents, the bill with my payment applied. 2 days later, Elena had the procedure. Grace video called me from the hospital, showing me her mother recovering, weak but stable. Elena's voice, barely a whisper. Thank you, Andrew. You saved my life. That felt real. That felt like I'd done something meaningful. What I didn't know, Elena did have a heart condition. She was in the hospital, but the procedure cost 165,000 pesos, not 285,000. PhilHealth covered more than Grace claimed. I'd sent 7,600 Australian dollars. Grace pocketed about 3,800 Australian dollars of it. My total now, roughly 124,000 Australian dollars. By now, we'd been together, online, for 14 months. We'd never met in person. I'd suggested visiting Cebu multiple times, but Grace always had reasons why timing wasn't right. Then she said she was ready. She wanted to apply for an Australian tourist visa, visit me in Brisbane for 3 weeks, meet my kids. I was ecstatic. Finally, she started the visa application process. But then, of course, there was a problem. Australian tourist visa requirements for Filipino citizens are strict. Grace's bank account needed to show at least 250,000 pesos in consistent savings. She had 140,000 pesos. She was 110,000 pesos short. I can borrow it from a friend and deposit it temporarily just for the bank statements, Grace said. But her friend is asking 15,000 pesos interest for a 3-month loan. I didn't want Grace borrowing money and paying interest. I transferred 3,000 Australian dollars to bring her bank balance up. Then there were more expenses. Processing fees for employment documents from her company, 850 Australian dollars. Fully refundable flights and accommodation required for the visa application, 2,400 Australian dollars. Over a month, I sent 6,250 Australian dollars for visa-related expenses. The visa application was submitted. We waited. Grace called me every day, anxious, excited, planning what we'd do in Brisbane. 4 weeks later, the visa was denied. Reason: insufficient evidence of strong ties to the Philippines and genuine intention to return. Grace was devastated. I was furious. At the system, at the bureaucracy. We'll try again, I told her. We'll strengthen the application. What I didn't know, Grace had never actually applied for the visa. The denial letter was fabricated. Every dollar I'd sent for visa expenses went straight into her pocket. My total now is at 130,797 Australian dollars. 2 months after the visa denial, Grace told me about an opportunity that would solve everything. Patricia's export business had been approached by a major Australian retail chain. They wanted a standing quarterly order, 95,000 Australian dollars worth of Filipino products. This would transform the business completely, Grace said. We're talking about $380,000 annual revenue. But the retail chain required inventory insurance and performance bonds. Total cost, 9 million pesos, about 242,000 Australian dollars. Patricia's trying to get bank financing, but banks won't lend without collateral, Grace explained. But Andrew, this is the deal that changes everything. Your $14,000 investment would become worth $70,000 plus annually in profit. She sent me the contract proposal. It looked official. I'm putting in everything I have, Grace said. I'm selling my car in addition of most of my savings totaling 32,000 Australian dollars. Patricia's putting in $95,000. We need you to put in $115,000 to close the gap. Grace sent me bank statements, loan documents, her car title. I thought, if she's risking everything, this must be real. I was tapped out from liquid savings. I took a 120,000 Australian dollar loan against one of my commercial properties. I transferred 115,000 Australian dollars in 2 installments. Grace sent me updated partnership documents, photos of new inventory, insurance certificates. Everything looked legitimate. My total, 245,797 Australian dollars. 3 weeks later, another crisis. The business needed working capital for the first order. They were 3.5 million pesos short, about 94,000 Australian dollars. This is the last time, Grace promised. After this, we'll never need another dollar. I transferred 94,000 Australian dollars. My final total, 339,797 Australian dollars. But by February, 16 months into this relationship, I'd had enough of waiting. I needed to visit Cebu. I needed to see the business. I needed to meet her in person. I booked flights for March, non-refundable. Grace finally agreed. She said she'd meet me at the Marco Polo Plaza Hotel. That brings us back to where my story began. March 12th, I arrived in Cebu. Grace was supposed to meet me at the hotel at 6 p.m. She never showed up, and what I discovered over the next 3 days would destroy everything I thought I knew. March 12th, 2024. I arrived at Marco Polo Plaza Hotel at 5 p.m. Grace was supposed to meet me at 6 p.m. She texted, "Andrew, I'm so sorry. Work emergency. Meet me at the hotel at 6 p.m. I'll be there, I promise." 6 p.m. came. No Grace. 7 p.m. Nothing. 8 p.m. Her phone went to voicemail. By 11 p.m. I knew something was very wrong. I called her dozens of times. I messaged her on WhatsApp, Viber, Facebook Messenger, all delivered, none read. The next morning I hired a private investigator in Cebu, a recommendation from my hotel concierge, a former Philippine National Police officer named Carlos. What he discovered over the next 3 days destroyed my entire reality. Carlos started with the basics. The apartment Grace showed me on video calls, a short-term rental unit in IT Park specifically used for video calls by scammers. Carlos had investigated 3 other cases from that exact unit. Grace's job at the BPO company? Fake. He contacted HR. No one named Grace Reyes had ever worked there. The building she'd filmed? Real BPO building. She'd just filmed in public areas. Her University of San Carlos degree? Fabricated. No record of Grace Reyes graduating in her stated year. Her parents' house? Real address, but owned by a family named Santos. They'd never heard of Grace. The business? Pacific Trade Connections? It existed on paper. Patricia was real, but the business was essentially dormant. No major contracts, no retail chain deal. Monthly revenue was under $5,000. The condo at Azure Residences? Real property, real purchase, registered to Grace Reyes. But Carlos found her, 41 years old, married with 3 children, worked as a nurse. Not the Grace I'd been talking to. The woman I'd been in a relationship with for 16 months. Her real name was Maricel Salazar. 29 years old, not 32. She lived in Mandaue City. She was unemployed, and she'd done this before. Carlos found evidence of 2 Americans, 1 Canadian and 1 Australian, who'd all sent her money. Amounts ranging from $35,000 to $115,000. I was victim number 5, and I'd sent more than anyone before me. Carlos showed me photos of the real Maricel. She looked similar to Grace, same general appearance, but different. Not identical, but close enough that with makeup and angles, she could pass. The profile photos? Stolen from a real Filipina woman's Instagram, someone who lived in California and had no idea her photos were being used. I'd been in love with a composite, a fictional character built from stolen photos, fabricated stories, and manufactured emotions. I filed a police report with Cebu City Police. They were sympathetic but realistic. International online fraud cases rarely result in arrests or recovery. Maricel had likely moved the money through multiple accounts, converted it to cash, or purchased property in other people's names. I consulted with a Filipino attorney. My chances of recovering the money through legal action? Virtually zero. The business partnership was legally worthless. The condo was in someone else's name. The medical bills were inflated. The visa expenses were fabricated. I flew back to Brisbane on March 18th, 2024. My total financial loss, approximately 375,000 Australian dollars. But the financial loss wasn't the worst part. When I got home, I realized everyone had tried to warn me. My daughter Emma had said in November that the whole situation sounded suspicious. I'd gotten defensive. I'd accused her of being closed-minded. My accountant had questioned the large transfers. I'd told him to mind his own business. My lawyer had warned me about the property ownership. I'd ignored him. Everyone around me had seen the truth. Everyone except me. In April, I had to tell my kids what happened. That was harder than losing the money, seeing the disappointment in their eyes, knowing they'd tried to warn me and I'd refused to listen. In May, I sold one of my commercial properties at a loss to stabilize my finances. I'm telling you this story not for sympathy, but as a warning. I'm educated. I'm successful. I'm not stupid. But I fell for this completely. Here's why I think I fell for this scam. 1, it was gradual. Started with $947. If she'd asked for $375,000 up front, I would have laughed. But small amounts built trust. Each successful transfer made the next one easier. 2, she gave me what I wanted emotionally before she took financially. I was lonely. She made me feel loved, needed, important. That emotional payoff blinded me to the financial extraction. 3, everything was documented. Fake, but documented. Hospital bills, business contracts, property documents. She'd invested in making it look legitimate. 4, she never seemed desperate. She refused my first offer. She claimed to invest her own money. It felt like partnership, not one-sided giving. 5, sunk cost fallacy. The more I sent, the harder it became to walk away. Admitting I'd been scammed meant admitting I'd lost everything I'd already sent. If you're in an international relationship right now, ask yourself, have you met in person? If it's been more than 6 months, why not? Have you verified their identity independently, not just video calls? Are you the only one sending money? Do they have constant emergencies requiring your money? Are friends and family skeptical, and are you isolated from their perspectives? I ignored every single warning sign. I'm 55 years old now. I'm rebuilding. My business survived, though my personal wealth took a devastating hit. Maricel Salazar is still out there, probably running the same scam on someone else right now. The Cebu police never arrested her. The $375,000 is gone. I'll never get it back. But if this video stops even one person from making the same mistake I did, then at least something good came from my disaster. International love is real. International relationships can work. But international fraud is just as real. And it's devastatingly effective. Verify everything. Trust cautiously. And never send money to someone you've never met in person. I learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Don't let it happen to you. Thank you for listening to Andrew's story this far. If this story resonated with you or scared you, hit that like button. Share it with someone, subscribe for more real stories, and drop a comment. Have you experienced or know anyone that has been in a situation like this? What red flags you see that Andrew missed? Once again, thanks for watching and protect yourself out there.